Nyonji chembor zordar nyume jang, zoner monam chembor nga gyabda, bakar dargan zanto shirmurdo. Shtumba tikje janla zhomzorlo, ni jarur tserni jangamsa, jawur tikjibshan la yelan. Jime banzo jala soranda kongdi toban bhavara shinjilo, kongdi toban bhavara shinjilo, kongdi toban bhavara shinjilo.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all sentient beings, please give rise to the unsurpassed and supreme bodhicitta.
Next, we will talk about the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Today, we probably don't need to recite the Tibetan text. Today, we will begin discussing the chapter on the names of the hells, which is the 5th chapter. When it comes to talking about hells, perhaps many people here in this very place have some thoughts or opinions. We may find it easy to accept discussions about hell, whether they are Tibetans or Han Chinese, or even Chang or Yi people, many of them in Asia specifically, especially some people here in our community should be relatively able to readily and easily accept it. However, in some specific Western countries, when the concept of hell is explicitly mentioned or discussed, they really are somewhat genuinely and profoundly unwilling to fully accept or acknowledge it. Of course, that's not just everyone, a single few. Some of the older, more traditional Buddhists, they still find it quite easy to accept and understand this concept. In many Western countries, like those found in Europe and America, for example, the past, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, and Dujom Rinpoche, and some of their older and more experienced disciples regarding the profound and deeply held theological concept of hell should be deeply convinced of it. There are such people. Some young people nowadays, when hell is brought up in conversation, may not really accept it easily or believe in it due to modern education influences or some other reasons. Actually, this is precisely the same situation in the East as well. This includes some of the young people among us Tibetans too. And they grew up in big cities nowadays. When hell is mentioned, they find it a bit unbelievable and can't accept it at all, really. This situation exists now too among numerous young people in modern society around us today, everywhere. As for the main reason why people in the West can't accept it, on one hand, some people tend to be blindly optimistic about life, and when hell and suffering are mentioned, they're not very willing to accept it or believe it as reality. But if you talk about things like genuine confidence, true courage, profound integrity, or even the concept of heaven itself, they are much more open to those important topics. That's certainly one aspect. There is, however, another aspect as well. For nearly 2,000 years or so, throughout history, over such a considerably long period of time, many Western religions, or at least some influential factions within them, in order to effectively achieve their own specific goals, began to strategically use the potent threat of hell to deeply intimidate and profoundly scare people. And under this pervasive kind of psychological guidance and manipulation, they've done all sorts of things. Especially when it comes to actively fighting against the established government or meticulously dealing with the common people, they have actually undertaken and accomplished all kinds of diverse and often complex things as well. In fact, within the doctrines of some of their religions, some religions have the concepts of heaven and hell, while some others, in fact, don't mention that, and that's still very much the case even today. But back then, many religious followers really did all sorts of things to achieve their own goals. They did a great many things, and precisely because of this, nowadays, currently, some people who are a little bit older, or those individuals who possess a deeper understanding of history when they discuss the profound concept of hell, they all feel that this is quite different from some of the religions that historically used to rule and dominion over us. Because back then, actually, many religious followers were speaking from their own personal biases. The true concept of what hell truly is, the actual concept, is actually not as described in their religions. For example, in the Holy Christian Bible of the West, it's actually not mentioned that much. Although the concepts of heaven and hell are indeed mentioned and acknowledged within the framework of Christian theological thought, it does not delve into nearly as much extensive detail as Buddhism does concerning the notions of past lives and future existences. Instead, it generally only states something like, if you commit sins and disobey, you'll go to hell. And if you practice good deeds, you will certainly go to heaven. It's quite similar to what is profoundly said in our Vajrayana teachings, like a snake inside a bamboo tube. You either go up or down. There are only these two distinct paths available to you. In essence, these are the only two directions one can take. And there's absolutely nothing else beyond that point. Their individual interpretations of this concept are also quite similar and consistent. Because of this, sometimes when people are talking about hell, some audience members would actually leave on the spot. So when I first started giving them these lectures, I thought to myself, why should I be afraid to talk about anything at all? I should always say precisely what truly needs to be said. After all, hell does indeed exist. If we talk about the 6 realms of samsara, sentient beings, karma manifest, and such phenomena truly exist. But later on in time, whether it was in schools or amongst those believers who were truly half convinced and indeed half doubtful, from their overall attitudes, from many of their deeply held views, just by looking at their expressions, it was clear it wasn't easy for them to accept. So later I came to better understand why some Khenpos and some others would say, you absolutely must not talk about hell. If you go to their various actual physical centers, if you go to their educational schools, they'll tell you, you can't talk about hell. Otherwise, they simply will not be able to fully and completely accept it at all. This might be the reason why they say that. There's another significant reason. Actually, in many Western countries nowadays, they also widely follow Darwin's influential ideas, which should be considered atheistic. Although in the past these particular beliefs had many devoted followers and sincere believers, nowadays, in the official educational institutions of various modern countries, it is generally not permissible to casually discuss with students very profound religious ideas or complex theological concepts, including the concepts of the eternal hell and the realms of heaven. Some of their official schools don't allow such topics to be discussed. At the same time, some religious rituals are also not very welcome. They are only supposed to exclusively discuss and articulate ideas that align with the prevailing and dominant current mainstream culture. So, in today's interconnected world, globally speaking, this is an evolving trend. They actually don't particularly recognize religion, meaning that religious beliefs and practices are not officially acknowledged, although in some places they talk about the principles of freedom of speech and the inherent equality for all individuals, and they often discuss the importance of both freedom and equality. But in reality, when you actually find yourself in a certain setting, it may not really be free. Of course, so-called freedom doesn't mean doing whatever you want, doing anything you wish. It's not like that. But in every country, in every place actually, the so-called freedom, equality and democracy, all of these individuals and groups have their own particular methods of operation. Especially for politicians, they are all quite careful and extremely cautious in their actions and statements. No matter which country or political system it is, they are rather wary of religion, because religion still has a very powerful appeal to believers. It can attract the hearts of many people from all backgrounds around the world in different ways. And this kind of sacred religious faith far surpasses the worship of individuals or belief in a certain political ideology, specific political ideology, and so on. So, throughout history for people all over the world, there has always been a certain caution toward religion. This is something that whether we study Buddhism or other religions or any other spiritual religious traditions, should be able to understand. What is the reason for this? Especially in the Western world, many religious followers eventually at first actively promote their deeply held religious ideas and beliefs, and then gradually, as their influence grows stronger and stronger, they start to think of all sorts of things. For example, overthrowing a certain government. Such phenomena are quite common in Western thought, especially in the concept of the union of church and state. This is more prevalent. But if we really look at Buddhism from a historical perspective, it is indeed quite different from many other religions. This is because in order to achieve their own personal goals, such as ruling an entire country or gaining significant power, this kind of selfish intention, according to the fundamental concepts and profound philosophy of Mahayana Buddhism, simply does not exist within its core teachings. However, many people think that Buddhism is also a religion, and that other religions actually rely on religious ideas to carry out all sorts of personal affairs, if that's the case, truly the case, then Buddhism surely can't be an exception either. So up until now, until this very moment, they have held different views on religion. It's entirely understandable that people might hold such opinions, such different opinions. Indeed, it is quite reasonable and excusable. Because if we look at history, there have been countless wars and numerous conflicts throughout history, and in fact, for many hundreds of years, it has always been the case. Internal conflicts and widespread bloodshed among religious followers themselves. Such cases are truly everywhere. They are extremely common and frequently observed. So, from this perspective, many things about us as humans, they rely on a kind of speculation on relevant past experiences that have actually previously occurred, specifically, and then use those to infer what is about to happen next. In this particular way, many influential politicians, as well as many prominent writers, profoundly shaped their comprehensive way of thinking about the future. It still follows a pattern. And this pattern is not without reason. So earlier, I originally wanted to talk about hell, but in the end, I digressed quite a bit, strayed off topic quite a bit, so I won't elaborate further. So what is it that I want to say here? What exactly do I mean here? Today, as we talk about hell with everyone, I truly don't have to worry that, as I keep on talking, I actually don't have to worry. Indeed, many people will become unhappy and just leave on the spot. In that case, I also wouldn't say that if you leave, you'll go to hell, straight to hell. There's no need for me to say that, to mention that. I think whether it's our traditional culture or some folk beliefs, or even in the Buddhist scriptures, sacred Buddhist scriptures, the concept of hell is basically accepted by many people, by many different people worldwide. Some individuals might genuinely wonder whether hell truly exists or not. It's entirely possible to harbor such profound doubts. But these kinds of doubts are also perfectly permissible. Great doubt leads to great enlightenment. If you have deep doubts, and later you observe through various means, perhaps you will gain great realization, a profound awakening. That possibility exists. Because at the beginning, it's quite normal for us to have some doubts about certain things, and it's perfectly okay to have them. It's allowed indeed. In fact, some people say, if hell really exists, why can't I actually see it? Why can't I truly hear it? They consistently use this reasoning to argue against or completely deny its very existence. But this particular way of thinking is far too naive. It should be considered absurd and unreasonable. Because so-called hell was never described as an object that beings in the human world, the ordinary human world, can see with the naked eye. No scripture or treatise has ever mentioned this, ever specifically mentioned this. Moreover, even if it did exist in this world, in our physical world, and we could see it with our naked eyes, that still isn't entirely certain yet. There are already many things that clearly already exist, but in reality our naked eyes simply cannot see them. This truly includes physical forms, and also encompasses things that exist within the spectrum of light, such as ultraviolet rays, infrared rays, electromagnetic waves, and indeed many, many other things. These things undeniably exist, and they play a role in our daily lives. Yet there are so many things that we still cannot see with our naked eyes. There are things our naked eyes cannot see, including powerful spirits, various deities, many fierce rakshasas, and numerous yakshas, not to mention those in hell realms, some of which are included among animals, and some among the ever-hungry suffering ghosts. All these sentient beings are also invisible to our naked eyes. Furthermore, if we look at it from the perspective of general physics, from this level of understanding, there is both dark matter and visible matter in our world. What human beings can actually perceive and see now is basically only about 5% or so of the entire spectrum. Then, about 20 to 30% is dark matter, which is completely invisible to us. There is also something called dark energy, which actually makes up a truly huge portion, around 70%. I honestly don't remember the exact figures very clearly at this moment, and of course every single scientist has a slightly different view on this particular subject. So, in this case, within our entire universe, our vast entire universe, how much can we actually see and truly discover, including the forms and colors our eyes can perceive? the manifest colors and forms, visible colors and forms, as clearly described in the Abhidharma Kosha in detail. In reality, there are so many manifest and shaped forms that we cannot see at all, which I think everyone really should be fully aware of what we commonly call the microscopic world and the macroscopic world, vast world. There are many boundaries between the micro and macro worlds. But generally speaking, some prominent scholars firmly believe that what can be clearly seen with the naked human eye truly belongs to the macroscopic world, while those things invisible to the naked eye, including what we call the extremely minute particles, such as molecules, quarks, and other extremely tiny things. In fact, these do not mean they don't exist. They most definitely do indeed exist. And when we carefully observe them through a powerful microscope, we can see them. The smallest particle, a speck of dust that we simply cannot analyze, is like the extremely fine and delicate tip of a needle, according to their detailed explanation. And there are approximately 7 even more incredibly tiny quarks, which are so remarkably minuscule that they can be easily arranged on the very sharp tip of a single needle. If we meticulously analyze it in this particular manner, the various forms and shapes that our human eyes are capable of perceiving are in actual fact not that numerous or abundant at all. Consequently, when we pose the profound question of whether a place like hell truly exists or not, some people say it absolutely does exist. Why is that exactly? Because they truly feel from ancient Buddhist scriptures and from many other profound perspectives that hell definitely exists. Some people truly think, although I personally don't dare to definitively conclude that it absolutely doesn't exist at all. I also don't have any reason to say that it does exist. Actually, this way of thinking is incorrect. According to scientific reasoning, it must be that if something exists, there must be data and evidence. If it doesn't exist, there must also be data and evidence. So, from a purely scientific point of view, a perspective, is there currently any evidence that hell does not exist? Up to now, not a single scientist has been able to clearly and precisely state or provide to us any evidence that hell does not exist. Most of the time it's simply because we haven't seen it. But if we haven't seen it, then regarding all things in the world, including what I just mentioned, whether it's dark matter or dark energy, all of these profound mysteries are being gradually discovered and continuously understood by them. Regarding the existence of hell, the actual real existence of hell realm, although scientists have not argued for it in a scientific manner, a rigorous scientific manner, this is also not their area of investigation. Because whether it's their instruments or anything else they have, unless the scientist himself creates negative karma and then falls into hell, at that point he would see it with his own eyes. That might very well be the absolute best direct evidence. Aside from that, in our current human world, many scientific bases, in reality, well, hell, not to mention hell, even hungry ghosts and spirits. They also don't dare to say for certain that they don't exist, nor do they dare to say for certain that they do exist. So in this particular case, according to the profound perspective of Buddhist logic, if something can indeed appear but not truly attainable, right? In Buddhist logic, that's not actually appear but not attainable, means it appears in front of you, but you haven't obtained it yet. That's called appear but not attainable. Like a bottle, for example. It should be there in front of you. But if I haven't seen it, it's just like there are spirits in front of me. That's called not appear and not attainable, right? Yes, it should be not appear and not attainable. So, as far as we're concerned, hell can be said to be what's called not appear and not attainable, just like spirits. From the perspective of Buddhist logic, some things are, if what's in front of you is appear but not attainable, if it can appear before you, like a bottle or a pillar, as long as you have eyes, if it appears right here in front of you, I will definitely perceive it. If I don't perceive it, that means it doesn't exist. But when it comes to spirits, because their physical form isn't something I can see myself. You see, when the Buddha was alive, many hungry ghosts would appear, but the other followers couldn't see them at all. Later, when the Buddha saw them with his wisdom eye, he said, "Show your true form." You won't be allowed to listen to the teaching. Suddenly it appeared and manifested itself. Many of the monks were terrified by this phenomenon. So even in front of us now, there might be some rakshasas or yakshas among the audience, or spirits of the deceased, ghosts and so on. They may be listening to the teaching here in their own unique way, but we simply can't see them. They can't appear to us, we can't see them. But does the fact that I can't see them mean they don't exist? Not necessarily, because they're not within your field of perception. If they are not truly within your immediate field of perception, then we have no valid reason to definitively say that they absolutely do not exist at all. You might say, there can't possibly be any kind of energy in front of me, or there can't possibly be any kind of waves. Whether it's sound waves or electromagnetic waves, if they're not the object of my visual sense, or not the object of my direct sense of touch or smell, then according to established Buddhist logic, it doesn't mean not exist. We should understand it this way. As for the existence of hell, in the past many people have said, if hell truly exists, then why is it that we cannot actually see it? This particular line of reasoning is actually a very crude and unsophisticated way of thinking. This approach, which is extremely simplistic, fails to capture the full complexity. So when it comes to understanding many different things in the world, sometimes they are truly not within the immediate scope of our direct sensory perception. We should therefore diligently utilize scriptural authority to infer their very existence, or alternatively, employ another kind of profound and rigorous reasoning to firmly establish them. This indeed is the discerning choice of the wise. Therefore, when it comes to hell, when it truly comes to hell, I truly think, whether you are from the east or the west, from the east or the west of the world, the concept of hell, the profound concept of hell realm, indeed should be studied carefully, should be studied very carefully. Of course, this isn't something we can just study theoretically. But in terms of practice, if we don't acknowledge the many karmic actions we've committed and truly end up falling into a dreadful and eternal hell in the next life, that would be an utterly terrifying and truly unbearable prospect to witness and contemplate. Therefore, each and every one of us should make thoughtful choices regarding cause and effect in our own spiritual practice, and diligently read more scriptures and treatises that thoroughly discuss the concept of hell. For example, in the third section of the Sutra of the Sublime Dharma of Clear Recollection, there are extensive and vivid descriptions of the terrifying scenes of hell, providing a deeper understanding. Also, in the profound The Buddha Speaks of the Boundless Samadhis on Contemplating Buddha, there are extensive discussions about the concept of hell as well. Important texts like The Words of My Perfect Teacher and the comprehensive The Great Chariot, the commentary on his finding rest in the nature of mind. Especially in the Great Chariot commentary, there are extensive citations from the Sutra of the Sublime Dharma of Clear Recollection, as well as from Letters to a Disciple and other similar important works to provide compelling evidence. So there is absolutely nothing for us to be truly afraid of. Everyone should, when committing negative actions, if you feel some genuine fear, that is actually very necessary. Because bodhisattvas fear the cause, while ordinary people fear the result. So bodhisattvas know in advance if they commit such actions, they become especially afraid. It's just like people in the world. A truly wise person is afraid and therefore will not break the law, afraid of breaking the law and acts very cautiously. But as for foolish people, they recklessly do many illegal things without restraint. Later on, the truly wise will not end up in the confines of the human world, but those without sufficient wisdom, they might indeed commit all sorts of regrettable things, and in the end up in the hells, or you could say the prisons of the human world. So, in these sacred scriptures, some vivid descriptions of the dreadful conditions in hell are clearly given. Actually, throughout the entire human world, or rather within the 6 realms, there are thousands upon thousands of hells of all kinds. Let's not even talk about hells for now. Even the prisons in the human world come in all kinds of types. Now it's considered the 21st century, and the world is to some extent a bit more civilized. But even now, people who are incarcerated in prisons are subjected to all sorts of cruel punishments and various methods of torment. And these methods are also incredibly varied. Prisons in Africa and prisons in Europe, for example. The conditions within prisons in different places are all quite distinct. If you were to personally visit some of their correctional facilities, what kind of feelings would genuinely arise in your heart? There are already so many types of prisons in the human world. Then, as for the various types of suffering in hell, there's even less need to explicitly mention them. You would definitely develop a completely new perspective. So, on one hand, when we talk about the concept of hell, Everyone should also learn to accept its existence and implications. On the other hand, this profound and often misunderstood concept of hell, once we truly understand its deeper meaning and significance, is very helpful and beneficial for us in many aspects of our lives, in terms of making significant choices about cause and effect in this present life. Today we will begin discussing the various names of the hells. Before that, I would like to talk a little bit about the profound image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. His sacred image also carries truly great merit and spiritual significance. Let me briefly talk about this aspect. There was an image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva during the illustrious Liang dynasty at the ancient Buddhist Shanji temple in Han State. Deep within one of its sacred temples, specifically situated on the prominent eastern wall of that very temple, a devout individual meticulously painted a revered image of the compassionate Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. There was also an image of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, especially the image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. It was particularly efficacious. When people paid homage to it, it would emit light. It was especially miraculous. Later, during the illustrious Tang dynasty, someone meticulously copied this significant image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. It was very much like what we would commonly refer to as copying or duplicating in our modern times. In this precise manner, the revered image was successfully reproduced. Even these copied images would also emit light just the same. Sometimes I also think about this phenomenon. For example, if a certain ancient Buddha statue was truly very blessed and held significant spiritual power, and then it is reproduced using modern machines, then many copies are made. In the past, I've given everyone an image of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, not the statue, though I think I've also given out images of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva before. I have given out tankas of Manjushri Bodhisattva, tankas of Shakyamuni Buddha. I've also given out tankas of the Dharma protector Chiu Marpo, the great powerful Dharma protector Chiu Marpo deity, because the original tanka was very powerful and full of blessings, very full of blessings. So back in the early Tang dynasty, when they carefully copied this sacred image of Ksitigarbha, it was observed that it also powerfully radiated a brilliant light and was considered to be especially blessed, just like the revered original. Subsequently, at a later period, there was a distinguished official from the illustrious Tang dynasty at that time who, with great reverence, carried the newly copied image of Ksitigarbha with him and also made offerings and prostrations to it. Because of this, on one occasion, they ventured out to sea. As they entered the vast expanse of the sea, all 9 of the accompanying ships tragically encountered a devastating disaster. However, his own ship remained completely unharmed throughout the perilous journey and, against all odds, returned safely. After that, he had even more faith in the incredible power of the Ksitigarbha image. His confidence grew even stronger and more unwavering. Later on, it should have been during the significant and influential historical period of Empress Wu Zetian, they also heard that this image was extremely efficacious. At that particular time, Wu Zetian also issued a specific order requiring them to meticulously copy the sacred image once again, to make appropriate offerings and reverently enshrine it. Later, in the very first year of the Dali era, I checked, and it should have been during the reign of Emperor Daizong of Tang. He was an emperor in the mid to late Tang dynasty. At that time, there was a highly virtuous and eminent monk who, for the greater peace and prosperity of the great nation and its people, copied an image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva for the revered Emperor Daizong of the Tang dynasty. For this very significant reason, it was widely said that the entire country enjoyed peace and prosperity, indeed, with favorable weather conditions and a pervasive sense of auspiciousness and good fortune throughout the entire land. Following these events, there was also a prosperous merchant who appeared. His wife, due to some unknown karmic cause, was actually pregnant for a full 28 months without giving birth, period. In the end, someone said that this image was truly quite efficacious. After meticulously and carefully copying this intricate image, paying close attention to every single detail and nuance, she completed her task. That very same night, under the cover of darkness, she gave birth to her child, a momentous and life-changing event. With the arrival of her newborn, her profound suffering, which had burdened her for so long, was finally and completely relieved, bringing her immense peace and comfort. At that ancient time, the whole world spoke of the radiant Ksitigarbha, spoke of the great radiant Ksitigarbha, or there was also the saying of the radiant Bodhisattva. So I was thinking, just because of a single image, really, from the early Tang dynasty all the way to the late Tang dynasty, this image of Ksitigarbha remained very, very famous. It was considered to have great blessing power. In fact, whether it's traditional thangkas, or other sacred Buddhist images, they can also be quite easily and further replicated. Nowadays, advanced technology makes the creation of reproductions even more sophisticated and efficient than ever before. So, if you meticulously create some original and compelling images and then actively promote them across various platforms, that is also very good. Of course, the Tang dynasty should be considered a period when Buddhism was very prosperous and influential. During the roughly 300 years of its existence, the Tang dynasty, out of 21 emperors, only one emperor throughout history opposed Buddhism. In stark contrast, the other 20 emperors basically all held a profound and unwavering faith. At that time, there was a widespread and deeply felt veneration of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, which manifested in immense respect, and numerous offerings made to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva were truly unmatched by many other historical dynasties. For this significant reason, I firmly believe that the Tang dynasty, whether in terms of national governance or the people as a whole, was very prosperous and flourishing in all aspects, extremely very prosperous and flourishing in all possible different aspects. Looking at history, it was also a golden age. In fact, whether it's a country or its people, their faith has a significant impact on the state of the nation. It really is closely related. If people at all levels, from top to bottom, if all individuals truly venerate the profound true Dharma and diligently practice virtuous and wholesome deeds, then everyone will undoubtedly enjoy peace, lasting happiness and tranquility. However, if people at all levels commit all kinds of egregious evil deeds and completely disregard the fundamental principles of cause and effect, then perhaps in a relatively short period of time, every single individual will also inevitably experience boundless and profound suffering. So, whether it is a vast and influential large country or a humble and intimate small family, it's actually very important to create an atmosphere of goodness. This is absolutely crucial. If there are indeed causes of virtue, then the inevitable result of true happiness is an undeniable and universal law. This profound principle applies not only to individuals, but also to entire groups of people and even to large influential countries, or to all the people throughout the entire world. If we all consistently practice truly virtuous deeds and diligently engage in actions that genuinely benefit others, then the whole world will undoubtedly attain a state of profound happiness and lasting peace, fostering a harmonious global community for everyone. If every single leader across the entire world, or even those individuals occupying positions within middle management, extending all the way down to ordinary everyday people, and even those who are just above the level of beggars, if each and every one of these individuals harbors a very strong, deeply ingrained and pervasive sense of personal selfishness, always truly thinking only of themselves, and apart from that, never considering the feelings of other peoples or anyone else at all, and then commit all kinds of evil deeds, creating all sorts of negative karma, then the resulting consequences cannot possibly be sweet or truly happy. So, when it comes to the acceptance and the rejection of cause and effect, everyone should understand this quite clearly and thoroughly. Today I haven't actually started the sutra content yet. We're just going to talk about the names of the different hells. At that particular time, the great Bodhisattva Samantabhadra Mahasattva respectfully addressed Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Here, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva also appears. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva appears as well, and Manjushri Bodhisattva also makes an appearance. These great bodhisattvas, whose names we often hear and are familiar with, show up quite frequently, very frequently, throughout the sacred sutra of Ksitigarbha. This chapter on the names of the hells mainly features Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. He is the one who comes to asking Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, Venerable One, I hope you can explain to the 8 classes of heavenly and dragon beings, the fourfold assembly of disciples, as well as to all future sentient beings and all sentient beings of the present, about the Saha world, enduring world, and Jambudvapa. The Saha world refers to the entire world transformed by Shakyamuni Buddha. As for Jambudvapa, that's our southern continent, which is basically our human world. When I translate Saha world, I consider its meaning. I translate it as Saha world, especially referring to Jambudvapa, the southern continent. because the word "and" here might indicate a difference in scope or size. Overall, it refers to the Saha world, especially the sentient beings in Jambudvapa who suffer from various karmic retributions. The results they experience, the locations of the hells, the names of the hells, as well as the various evil retributions and so on, the various places of hell, the different names of these hells, and within these very hells, how the forms of karmic retribution are truly experienced. All of these need to be explained to us in this way, so that sentient beings in the degenerate age, in the Dharma-ending era, will understand what? They will understand that good deeds bring good results and evil deeds bring evil results. Especially those who have committed serious evil karma will fall into hell and experience immeasurable suffering. Therefore, at that time, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva requested Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva to fully explain the karmic retributions of hell as human beings living in this very world. I think we are actually quite fortunate, because most people in the world have absolutely no idea that hell truly exists at all. Because if you do not know about the existence of hell, then the causes for falling into hell are also committed in great number in this very life. Fortunately, we have this kind of karmic connection, and before we finally close our eyes for the very last time, we will know what causes led to hell. If that's the case, for those who have self-awareness, they definitely wouldn't dare to casually create the causes for hell, the karmic causes for hell realm. So this is really very necessary. In the past, many great masters and eminent monks in Tibetan Buddhism especially like to talk about the sufferings of hell, because by talking about the sufferings of hell, one becomes extremely cautious in this human life. So in this sense, it is indeed very necessary. He was also like this at the time. If you want to know the causes of your past life, look at what you are experiencing in this life. If you want to know the causes from your previous life, then you should look at what you are experiencing in this life. You should understand this through this method. At this point, how did Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva explain it? Virtuous one, it is by the blessing power of the Tathagata, as well as the great power of you, the great Bodhisattva, that I can briefly speak about the names of the hells, as well as the matters of karmic retribution and evil consequences. Perhaps it refers to the retribution for evil deeds. As for sin and evil, I'm not sure if there's any distinction between them. No need to differentiate. Intrinsic sin, intrinsic evil, or sins established by the Buddha, none of these distinctions work here. Just use retribution for sin and evil. It means the retributions for these sins and evils. The matters of retribution for sin and evil are just briefly mentioned. Here in the Ksitigarbha Sutra, it also doesn't go into great detail, just a brief explanation. Next, it then begins to talk about the various different hells or realms of suffering. Virtuous one, to the east of Jambudvapa there is a mountain. This mountain is called Iron Encircling Mountain. Inside this iron encircling mountain, it is pitch black and deep, profoundly so. There is no sunlight or moonlight whatsoever in that place. This entire great and terrible hell is specifically called the Avachi hell. There is also another hell called the Abha hell. In some of our scriptures, our ancient Buddhist scriptures, Avicii hell and Abha hell are discussed together, discussed closely together. Abha hell is a Sanskrit term. A means not, literally means never, and B's means interval, so Abishi hell. Some say it is the extreme incessant hell. Here they are separated into two distinct realms. There is also another hell. Yes, here they are considered separately. Of course, in some scriptures, Avicii hell, like in the Longagama Sutra, the very ancient sacred Longagama Sutra text collection scripture, in the so-called Avicii hell, all the objects of the eyes, ears, nose, body, and mind, for example, the sounds one hears, or the forms one sees, are all extremely, truly, extremely evil. Whether it is truly evil sounds, truly evil sights, or truly evil smells, all forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and touches are indeed extremely evil. Those who experience this fall into Avicii hell. This kind of explanation also exists. There is also the so-called Abha hell. For example, in the Sutra of the Sublime Dharma of Clear Recollection and some other scriptures, it is widely said that in the so-called Abha hell, intense flames spread everywhere, and the entire bodies of the suffering hell beings are constantly burning. But when these destructive flames touch the majestic king of mountains, in a very short time everything is completely burned up without remainder. But the bodies of the hell beings keep burning continuously. During the burning process, it is temporarily not easy for them to die. So, sometimes they are separated and at other times they are together. In any case, there is a truly terrifying hell in such an extremely dark and desolate place. This is called Avachi hell, or the extreme incessant hell. Of course, regarding the extreme incessant hell, earlier we talked about 5 aspects. It is widely said that back in the earlier days, most likely during the extensive period of the Soviet Union era, which spanned roughly between the 1960s and the 1990s, a significant and impactful time in history, at that time the Soviet Union was making special preparations to fight against the United States. They carefully made extensive preparations in 2 critical areas. One significant aspect was to actively look for suitable battlegrounds in the vast expanse of outer space, and the other was entirely underground. As for the underground section, they persistently kept digging deeper and deeper beneath the Earth's surface, extending their efforts further into the subterranean depths. In some places, they had already dug more than 10 kilometers down. When one dedicated team had dug to a significant depth of over 10 kilometers, they unexpectedly encountered some truly terrifying unknown beings. They distinctly heard the chilling screams of a great many tormented people, producing truly horrifying and deeply unsettling sounds. These people simply did not dare to keep digging further. Of course, when they spoke to the outside world, they claimed it was due to a lack of funding. But in reality, they had encountered this very unusual group of beings. There was a geologist with a doctorate degree who said, "As a Communist Party member, I never used to truly believe in heaven above or hell below, but this time we have already opened the very gates of hell itself. We dare not dig any further, not even a single inch. Otherwise, we ourselves might fall into hell. We saw it with our own eyes." At that time, I'm not sure if I've shared this before, the way they were. There were even recordings of the screams inside, audio recordings. There were thousands upon thousands of people inside, crying out and screaming loudly, and at that very moment, something like intense flames even burst forth. The extreme temperature was such that our ordinary, standard, high-temperature measuring instruments in this world were completely unable to accurately measure it. Perhaps the karmic forces of all sentient beings are different. In some of the texts, including the 7 treatises of Abhidharma, the so-called hell is said to be underground, in a certain place beneath the famous Gangdise snow mountains. There are such claims as well, of course according to the Mahayana tradition, including texts like the Jewel Treasury Treatise and others, wherever the karmic forces of sentient beings manifest. That is where they exist. Just like in the Bodhisattva, who truly creates those intensely fierce fires? Actually, in the realm of hell, there isn't someone like a so-called god or a divine being who orchestrates such suffering, who creates all these things, who forges the entire iron ground of hell. Who exactly makes these formidable iron weapons? Where do the hell wardens, the Yama's minions, come from? There is no such thing. When a person's karma manifests at that time, what actually appears is hell itself. From this broader perspective, it's not just hell. Our 6 realms of samsara are indeed the very same way. All of them appear within a state of profoundly deluded manifestation. Some of us might genuinely think that's utterly impossible. Can these deluded appearances truly become like this? But in this particular regard, perhaps those individuals who diligently study the intricate fields of physics or quantum mechanics may also have to admit it. Even what we see right now is actually a delusion of our visual consciousness. According to the Buddhist logic of pramana, the things I see should be direct, valid perceptions. But if you look deeper, actually, even in the Hinayana tradition, it is acknowledged that, for example, this cup that I see, it appears to be solid, and all of its constituent parts seem quite sturdy and robust. But in actual fact, whether it is according to the venerable Abhidharma Kosha, or the views of the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika schools, or from the perspective of modern science, everything inside is actually completely penetrable. There is absolutely nothing that is not entirely empty. This is what our current physicists, including the views of quantum mechanics, all agree on. We say, impossible, something this solid. But if everything inside is penetrable, then tell me, why exactly can't my hand just go right through it? There are explanations for this. There is a kind of external force that is constantly blocking it. That's why our hands can't possibly go through the computer. So what does this actually tell us? The things we think we very clearly see with our own eyes are in fact not truly real. Precisely because of this, the King of Samadhi Sutra says, the eyes, ears and nose are not valid cognition. What we see is not a valid perception. In the past, many people simply didn't believe this. Why isn't seeing is believing? But now, gradually, people are starting to realize when we carefully observe things through the lens of science and various sophisticated instruments, it profoundly turns out that the very things we actually perceive and see, even though we firmly think they are truly real, in reality, the fundamental things we genuinely believe to be real are, as Buddhism says, like dreams, illusions, mirages, or a spinning firebrand, and so on. Actually, these metaphors are very much in line with the profound insights of modern physicists. They correspond especially closely indeed. Some of us may have never paid attention to this point. Some people are indifferent to it, but in these two significant aspects, some fundamental Buddhist views should be very similar indeed. However, I think that in certain specific cases, including further profound speculation, detailed analysis, and the truly subtle, intricate aspects of emptiness up to this present moment, many contemporary scientists still haven't completely fully understood it. If they haven't directly observed it themselves, but instead truly practice or sincerely seek to understand, then the Buddhist concept of emptiness should very naturally coincide with their findings. This is something we may indeed need to address, because when we talk about hell or discuss some rather profound principles, many people may have some doubts and some discriminating thoughts. At that time, we need to remember that our own discriminating thoughts, what we think is right may not necessarily be right, and what we think is wrong may not necessarily be wrong. So our discriminating thoughts really aren't very reliable or entirely trustworthy at all. Your own mind is certainly not to be completely trusted. That's precisely what it explicitly says in the ancient Sutra of Wise and Foolish, right? Huh? Or is it really the ancient sacred Sutra of 42 chapters? Is it the Sutra of 42 chapters? Are you sure? Huh? Which one are you talking about? The Buddha's last teaching sutra. Yeah. Take off your mask when you speak, otherwise we can't hear you. Oh. Is it the Sutra of 42 chapters or the last teaching sutra? So which is it, the Sutra of 42 chapters or the last teaching sutra? He says it's the last teaching sutra. They'll end up in the Avicii hell. All right, let's continue with the next part, shall we? There's still time, so I'll just give a brief explanation. This is one type of hell. There's also a hell called the four-cornered hell. In the four-cornered hell, a significant amount of rain continuously falls. Among this falling rain, there is a dreadful rain of intense flames, and also a burning, molten iron rain. This agonizing kind of rain falls mercilessly upon the bodies of sentient beings, completely shattering and utterly burning them to absolutely nothing. It's the four-cornered hell. Some people also say that all walls can suddenly catch fire, trapping sentient beings inside. It's actually like when a serious fire suddenly breaks out somewhere, and those inside have no way to completely escape. That's another way it is often described. Then there's the terrifying flying knife hell, a truly dreadful place. In some ancient scriptures, it is indeed called the hell of bladed wheels, a truly terrifying and dreadful place. Because burning fiery iron wheels fall like a relentless heavy snow, descending from the sky with immense force and a dazzling destructive glow, gracefully flying high and freely all through the vast open air, soaring with effortless motion, slicing the bodies of suffering beings into countless, agonizing pieces. Because the flying knives are actually extremely sharp, razor-edged blades, they mercilessly slice, tear, and violently shatter the fragile bodies of the tormented hell beings, inflicting unimaginable pain and destruction upon them. There is also a terrifying hell that is specifically known as the Flaming Arrow Hell. Countless flaming arrows, burning fiercely and intensely, pierce deep into the hearts of the hell beings. The beings in this hell truly die and are reborn many thousands and tens of thousands of times, repeating this cycle over again. There is also a very specific hell which is called the Squeezing Mountains Hell. Because of the manifestation of beings' karma, huge mountains appear on both sides. It's just like the rounding up and crushing hell. The beings in hell are caught in the middle. In the end, their physical bodies are completely and utterly crushed into fine powder. After a short while, when the majestic mountains open up once more, the mountains separate, and these unfortunate beings come back to life again. They are forced to experience this excruciating pain continuously, without any respite. There is also a hell called the piercing spear hell also. It might be like the spears from ancient times. Not necessarily the guns we use in modern warfare. They're extremely sharp, incredibly extremely sharp, like a spear, a sharp spear. They pierce through the entire body, from east to west, from south to north. The body is pierced countless times, continuously impaled. The entire body is run through again and again with sharp iron spikes or long iron spears. The body is constantly being painfully pierced like this, suffering immense pain. There is also a specific hell called the Iron Cart Hell. As for the Iron Cart Hell, it is described in the Sutra of Wise and Foolish and other scriptures just the same. The compassionate maiden named Maitrakanyaka, on her head a fiercely burning hot iron wheel relentlessly spins, causing unimaginable agony, or she is cruelly tormented and made to suffer with a heavy, unyielding iron cart. Or she is compelled and forced to pull the cart of hell, just like a weary beast of burden pulling a cumbersome horse-drawn carriage. The tormented beings in hell are compelled to ceaselessly pull incredibly heavy, scorching iron carts. There is also a hell called the Iron Bed. On an exceptionally vast and unforgiving bed, the suffering beings of hell are forcibly made to lie down. Directly above them is a menacing, intensely burning iron net, hanging ominously and casting a terrifying glow, which is placed over the bodies of the suffering beings in hell. They are never able to truly attain liberation. There are also hells, also called the Iron Ox. There are burning oxen, much like the famous fighting bulls in Spain. Imagine terrifying, colossal burning oxen. They relentlessly trample the tormented beings in the fiery depths of hell with their immense, powerful hooves, or brutally stomp on them, crushing them into the scorched earth. Or alternatively, they might spew intense flames from their very eyes and mouths, a truly terrifying sight. Anyone who unfortunately comes into direct contact with them is instantly burned to a crisp. Those truly hellish oxen and sheep are especially terrifying and quite menacing indeed. They are many, many times larger than the cattle and sheep we typically encounter today. Their sheer size is truly many, many times greater than what we are familiar with. At that time, they all appear extremely terrifying. For example, some people, when living in the human world, if they truly love to kill cattle, then the formidable iron ox would indeed appear at that precise time. If they genuinely love to kill dogs, then the menacing iron dog would certainly make its appearance. If they harbored a deep desire to kill certain birds, these vengeful creatures would then come and relentlessly start pecking at your vulnerable body, your delicate eyes, and so on. In fact, sentient beings are actually a profound kind of reflection of karma, much like a mirror, like a clear mirror. If I myself cause harm to sentient beings, for example, if I engage in the act of killing cattle, sheep, snakes, or frogs, including killing crabs, then in the future I will also inevitably become one of these unfortunate beings, experiencing a similar dreadful fate. Just as we discussed and mentioned yesterday, you yourself will also undeniably become like this, enduring significant suffering. Furthermore, there is also a terrifying hell specifically known as the Iron Clothing, a place of immense torment, which is like a piece of clothing or a monk's traditional robe, completely covering your entire body. The iron garment is specifically made of burning hot iron plates. After putting on such an iron garment, your entire skin, flesh, tendons, and bones are all completely destroyed and truly burned, which is extremely painful to witness. Because your body is completely wrapped and covered in burning iron sheets, completely wrapped and entirely covered in burning hot iron sheets. There are also some hells called the 1,000 Blades, which are quite similar to the previous ones, a truly immense and numerous collection of weapons and countless thousands upon thousands of razor-sharp blades mercilessly stab and brutally pierce you, or viciously stab and utterly kill your body in an unrelenting onslaught. There is also a hell called the Iron Donkey, which is the same as the previous ones. In the past, to kill donkeys, they also used burning iron donkeys. Actually, many things in hell are done by burning beings to inflict harm, done by burning suffering beings to inflict terrible harm. There are also some hells called molten copper, also some terrible hells, where burning molten copper is carefully poured into the mouth, causing the beings in hell to experience pain. There are also some hells called embracing pillars, where intensely burning iron pillars are used, much like some ancient and brutal torture devices. In ancient times, some places also had such things. When the intensely burning iron pillar appears before you, it is a truly dreadful sight. The wretched beings in hell are perpetually forced to embrace it, their eternal torment. Then the entire body, including all of the delicate internal organs and the robust outer shell, is completely and utterly corroded, severely damaged, and thoroughly burned beyond recognition. There are also some hells called flowing fire, where scorching water mixed with raging flames rains down relentlessly, burning and utterly destroying the tormented beings dwelling within the depths of hell. There are also some particularly gruesome hells called plowing tongue, where the tongue becomes vast and boundless, and is plowed over with a plow. There are also some hells, specifically called head chopping, where sharp blades are continuously used to grind and scrape your entire head, causing discomfort. In such a situation, it might be worse than death itself. Perhaps being beheaded would be a bit better, because if you were to die slowly like this, then indeed it would be quite unfortunate. It's especially pitiful. There are also some hells called feet ablaze, where the entire place is completely engulfed in fierce, raging flames all around, and when the beings in hell walk barefoot there, their feet are completely burned and ruined. There's also a hell called eyes pecking, where all different kinds of fierce birds are commonly used to start pecking at your eyes, your brain, and other vital organs and sensitive areas of your body. Many vulnerable parts of the body like these, various predatory vultures, majestic eagles, and other fierce birds of prey will attack. If in your previous life you loved to cruelly kill living beings, if you mercilessly slaughtered innocent animals, causing them immense suffering and pain, including the killing of chickens, geese, and other similar animals, they will certainly come to peck at your eyes. There are also hells called iron balls, where after swallowing intensely burning iron balls, your entire body will be completely burned and utterly destroyed from the inside out. There are also hells called the hells of quarreling. This quarreling hell is not described particularly clearly in some texts. Of course, some of our scriptures do mention it. For example, there are some neighboring hells, or in some solitary hells, there are different karmic effects. There are many different various karmic effects and serious consequences. In some hells, for instance, when monks first gather in one place, gather together in one single place, initially, they use various bowls and a selection of eating utensils, but after a significant period of time, they inevitably start to argue and engage in a physical fight. All the bowls and utensils from earlier, these eating implements, suddenly turn into terrifyingly sharp blades and weapons. Then they start to quarrel and beat each other. So, as for the quarreling hell, it might very well be a place where people endlessly argue with each other constantly. And this arguing is not like the debates or discussions we usually have. It's nothing like that. There's no such happiness, no true joy in hell. It should be a constant state of arguing and bickering with each other. Some of these particular arguments are really quite intense indeed. The arguments we have in daily life might be doubled in intensity there. Actually, quite often, sometimes in this human world, perhaps out of genuinely sincere and good intentions, or in order to achieve our very own personal goals, if we engage in such arguments, then perhaps in the next life, it could become the cause for ending up in the hell of endless quarreling. It's hard to say. Recently, on one hand, when I personally see these truly horrific scenes of hell, I also feel very deeply afraid and constantly remind myself to be extremely careful and vigilant. I always try my best to actively avoid conflicts. This particularly includes times when, for the sake of our important projects, we often end up arguing with others during discussions. Just now, just at this moment when I came up here, I had quite a heated argument with them. Actually, my patience practice over the past couple of days was going pretty well. But today, although I didn't feel any anger in my heart, but it seemed like I just couldn't help but speak out. Then I said, well, I'm not going to care about it anymore. I just then said goodbye and then quickly left from the place. Actually, some of them might have truly thought I wasn't angry, while others thought I was angry. In my heart, I guess I was truly practicing patience. Actually, when we practice patience, if we really can't keep it up for a very long time, at the very least for an hour or even within a single day, we should try our best not to curse at others in our actions, or avoid doing things related to your own anger. This is also a kind of delay and also a form of practice. If you can just hold back a little, after a little while, perhaps your anger will completely be gone. This is indeed a very good and positive thing. Yesterday I had the opportunity to provide a training to the esteemed nuns and kenmos. It was important for them to keep various teaching materials for their ongoing studies and practices. During the course of this training, I clearly communicated to all the participants that the session was scheduled to start at 11 o'clock in the morning. There were, in fact, 30 nuns. But when the clock struck precisely 11 o'clock, not all of them had actually arrived. Even by the time it was 11:16, not everyone was truly there yet. I really, truly wanted to lose my temper, especially since I had made it so incredibly clear. At the very least, I had already mentioned it several times before. After I got up there, I checked in with my own mind. I can't need to remain calm. I noticed that some of the people in charge below, from their expressions, they definitely expected that I would get angry. However, they certainly did not anticipate that I would handle it in a calm and composed way. Afterwards, I genuinely felt that this particular approach was actually successful and effective. Because sometimes people can have certain emotions. If you use your own right understanding and mindfulness to properly deal with these particular emotions, then if you can subdue them, then this should also count as a kind of spiritual practice. Although we can't achieve what Shakyamuni Buddha did in his previous lives, where someone beside him used sharp blades to cut him piece by piece, and he still spoke the truth joyfully at the same time. We probably can't realistically reach that elevated level, but at the very least in our own personal actions, it's still profoundly important to conscientiously try our best not to create any negative karma. So regarding this concept known as the hell of quarrels, I don't know exactly what it's like, but if we understand it literally, this hell is truly especially terrifying indeed. Everyone there might be at each other's throats. They are probably spending their valuable time in a particularly hateful and utterly destructive way. It's especially and truly pitiful to witness such behavior. There are also some hells called the Iron Axis Hell. As for the Iron Axis Hell, it's like some of the cutting machines we have in the world today. The beings in hell are placed in one spot, similar to some of the torture devices used in ancient times. Some were for beheading, some for cutting off hands, some for cutting off feet, and some for dismembering the entire body, everything. As long as you end up inside, you'll be sliced into many pieces. This is precisely what that dreadful hell is truly like. There's also another distinct hell called the Hell of Great Anger. The Hell of Great Anger is also an extremely formidable and terrifying realm. When the beings of this particular hell gather together, their collective anger is not merely intense, but profoundly and violently explosive, erupting with an overwhelming force. This is because some of us, perhaps by our very nature, are usually very kind and truly loving, but once anger, however, arises, we find ourselves unable to control or overcome it. In fact, if we do not properly repent for this transgression, and this cause continues on into the future, it can also be very frightening. So, as for the hell of great anger, the beings who find themselves in this particular hell, for the most part, basically all of their states and conditions are characterized by intense suffering and profound distress, immersed in anger and hatred. Even in our human world, poisonous snakes and dinosaurs, some beings have extremely strong anger, uncontrollable violent rage and fury, including tigers and other fierce beasts, wild, dangerous, carnivorous, fierce beasts. Some of them are filled with intense hatred. They don't even care about their own bodies. So among the beings in hell, some are also especially pitiable. Generally speaking, among greed, anger, and ignorance, according to the profound sacred classical teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, the great vehicle of Mahayana Buddhism tradition, the fault of a single instance of anger outweighs that of 100 acts of greed. The fault of one moment of anger truly far surpasses 100 acts of greed. Therefore, in the Mahayana Buddhism, indeed, anger and hatred must be counteracted as much as possible. Actually, when we first begin, perhaps due to karmic forces or habitual tendencies from past lives, some anger and hatred are very difficult to overcome. But gradually, as long as we keep working to counteract them and change ourselves, even if our anger was very severe before,
Over time, there will eventually be some change. This kind of change is actually the result of spiritual practice. So, it is important that we should do our best not to fall into such dreadful hells of suffering, and instead diligently cultivate compassion, profound loving kindness, and deep, genuine empathy. In fact, the authentic teachings of Mahayana Buddhism are extraordinarily precious and valuable, especially for all sentient beings who inhabit this world. Our mind stream can always be transformed. Even just listening to one class or simply reading a single profound book can truly bring about great and significant changes in a person's mind. Otherwise, today I heard about 2 individuals from the very same hometown who tragically stabbed each other 7 times with knives. For people such as these, truly, in their entire mind stream, there isn't even a single seed of Mahayana. How could it possibly be like this? Do not do to others what you do not wish for yourself. To truly use one's own life to act in such a profoundly meaningful way, it is truly, perhaps they are not genuine Buddhists. If they are indeed sincere Buddhists, then this situation is especially tragic and deeply regrettable. So, as Buddhists ourselves, we may not be able to make great contributions to Buddhism, but at the very least we should not tarnish its good name or its reputation. We may not be able to benefit countless sentient beings, but we should at least, even if it's just one sentient being, do our best not to harm them. This is our bottom line. This is a fundamental requirement of Mahayana Buddhism. If things continue like this before I die, even though my own practice is not especially outstanding, I believe that as long as we maintain this unwavering faith, it should be very beneficial for both ourselves and others. Therefore, this anger, for many sentient beings too, is indeed a very serious and dangerous poison. This kind of potent poison has truly harmed countless people as well. Mara, the demon king, also uses 5 arrows every day, which are our greed, anger, ignorance, jealousy, and arrogance. These are indeed the 5 powerful arrows. Every single day, he relentlessly shoots these very arrows directly at us. But for most sentient beings, however, it is mainly the arrows of anger and greed that they receive the most. Among them, the destructive arrows of greed and anger are the most commonly encountered and experienced. Additionally, the insidious arrows of intense jealousy are also very often received and felt by many individuals. Generally speaking, the arrows of arrogance and ignorance are much less common. There is also such a common saying. So we also need to observe ourselves. For example, when something is very serious in our own mind stream, when jealousy is especially severe, we should pray to the 3 jewels and work to counteract it ourselves. Because this could destroy our own practice. And at the same time, we will ruin our future lives. Perhaps in this present life we are practitioners, monastics, or lay people, but if we do not perform well, then in the next life we may be reborn in the hell of anger or the hell of disputes. In that case, as soon as you enter a very hellish place, you'll find yourself, it really is extremely difficult. Right now, currently, when some individuals are apprehended by law enforcement officers, everyone does their utmost to avoid being sent to the prosecutor's office. If you end up at the prosecutor's office, then you might potentially be sent directly to the legal court. In the end, you might be sentenced. And once you go in, it's really very hard to actually get out of prison indeed. People often say this in the human world. It's always best to stop these kinds of things before they ever reach the prosecutor's office. It's precisely the same for us. It's truly best if we first, because we are people who understand what to accept and what to reject, it's best for us not to end up in hell. Once you truly enter hell, unless Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva personally comes to save us, otherwise there may be absolutely no way out at all. It's incurable. There's no hope of release. It's truly terrifying. So each of us should truly reflect deeply on our own actions ourselves. And as Buddhists, it's truly quite sad if we really don't think about these important things or don't believe in them at all. Actually, many of us do have faith and should believe. But when karmic forces and afflictions arise, many people find it very hard to truly control themselves at the critical breaking point of their intense afflictions. It's like a powerful waterfall bursting forth. Once it erupts, it's very difficult to handle. In our world, including prisons I've visited, many of those people made a mistake, a single moment of thought. They say, how did I kill someone back then? How did I do that? There are many cases like this. That's why we use right knowledge and right mindfulness to restrain ourselves and try our best not to fall into the hells of great anger and the hells of quarrel, as well as the iron axis hell and other hells mentioned above. Then Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said, "Virtuous one, within the iron encircling mountains there are such hells, their number is limitless." At that time, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, because earlier it was indeed Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva who was speaking, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was speaking relying on the Buddha's power. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva continued to speak, saying that within the vast and formidable iron-encircling mountains there are an astonishingly large number of hells. Their count is truly immeasurable, incredibly numerous and beyond comprehension. That's all for today's discussion, all right? Let's all recite the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva together today. On one hand, it's for the sentient beings suffering in the hells, praying for Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's blessings for them, and also for favorable weather conditions, as well as to eliminate various debilitating diseases and widespread epidemics, especially highly infectious diseases, and also to effectively dispel all natural disasters and so on. Let's all first sincerely recite the sacred name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva together. Then, with reverence, we will dedicate the merit.
Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Shanchu Senhua Senhua Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sheng Zalon Chodo Tiao Sun Jin. Sonam Dei Tanche Togai Tone De Jana Tashi Jirgana Jirano Chukai Jupun Tonen Goa Tasha Bandaran Gara Bana Azadar
Ksitigarbha Padma Sada Ksitigarbha Padma Sada